Dad's phone lit up next to me in the hospital waiting room. I wasn't trying to snoop, but the preview message was right there on the lock screen. A text reply from my father: "She won't make it anyway, just need to wait a bit longer." My stomach dropped. Mom had been in the ICU for 6 days after her stroke. Dad walked back from the coffee machine, humming softly like nothing was wrong. He set a cup beside me and squeezed my shoulder. "We just have to hope for the best, sweetheart," he said, settling into the plastic chair. I nodded, trying to keep my face normal, but inside, my mind was racing. Who was he texting? What did "wait a bit longer" mean? And why was he humming when Mom was fighting for her life? I memorized the phone number from the preview before the screen went dark. Dad picked up his phone and slipped it into his pocket, completely unaware that I'd seen anything. "Want to go see her again?" he asked. "Sure," I whispered, but my voice felt strange. Everything felt strange now. We walked down the sterile hallway toward the ICU, and I wondered if the man beside me was the same person I'd called Dad my whole life. I couldn't sleep that night. Dad had driven us home around 10, saying we both needed rest. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw those words: "She won't make it anyway." The next morning, I watched him make breakfast like it was any normal Tuesday. Scrambled eggs, toast, orange juice. He even packed me a lunch for my college classes. "How are you holding up?" he asked, sliding the plate toward me. "I'm okay," I lied. "Good. Your mom would want you to keep up with school. She'd hate for this to derail your future." The way he said "would" instead of "will" made my skin crawl. Like he'd already decided she wasn't coming home. At the hospital, Dad stepped outside to take another call. Through the glass, I watched him pace back and forth, gesturing with his free hand. When he came back, his face was serious. "That was Dr. Williams," he said. "We need to start thinking about some difficult decisions." "What kind of decisions?" "Medical ones. About how aggressive we want the treatment to be." But Mom had only been in the ICU for a week. People recovered from strokes all the time. Why was he already talking about giving up? "My name is Ela Durney, and I'm 20 years old. I'm a junior at Toronto Metropolitan University, studying social work. I've always been close to my mom. She's the one who helped me with homework, drove me to soccer practice, and stayed up late talking about everything and nothing." Dad was around, but always working. He runs an insurance agency downtown. Successful, busy, important. At least that's what he always told us. Mom worked part-time at the library and took care of everything else. The house, the bills, my school stuff. Even their marriage seemed to run on her energy. I never thought much about it before. But sitting in that hospital room, watching Dad check his phone every few minutes, I started to see things differently. Mom's stroke happened suddenly. She was making dinner on a Tuesday night when she collapsed in the kitchen. I found her when I got home from class. Dad was at a work dinner and didn't get to the hospital until almost midnight. The doctors said the next few weeks would be critical. But they also said people her age often made remarkable recoveries. So why did Dad seem so sure she wouldn't? Aunt Marion visited on Thursday. She's Mom's sister, and they've always been close. She brought flowers and sat beside Mom's bed for over an hour, talking quietly even though Mom couldn't respond. "You should take a break, honey," she told me later in the hallway. "This is too much stress for someone your age." I appreciated her concern, but leaving felt wrong. Someone needed to stay with Mom. Someone needed to be her voice while she couldn't speak for herself. Dad was in the hallway again, texting. Always with his phone, always stepping away. When Aunt Marion hugged him goodbye, I saw him glance at his screen over her shoulder. "Who keeps calling?" I asked when Aunt Marion left. "Work stuff," he said quickly. "You know how it is." But it was 7:30 on a Thursday night. What kind of work emergency happened at 7:30 on a Thursday night? That night at home, I tried searching the phone number I'd memorized. It came back to a law firm downtown. Fletcher and Associates, estate planning and probate law. Why was my father texting with estate lawyers while my mother was still alive? Friday morning, a nurse asked Dad to sign some paperwork. I was in the bathroom when it happened, but when I came back, I saw him sliding a document into his jacket pocket. "What was that about?" I asked. "Just medical forms," he said. "Nothing important." But something felt off. Later, when Dad went to get lunch, I asked the nurse what paperwork she'd needed. "Oh, the DNR form," she said casually. "Do not resuscitate. Your father said your mother had specific wishes about that." My blood went cold. A DNR meant that if Mom's heart stopped, they wouldn't try to save her. But Mom had never mentioned anything like that to me. In fact, she'd always been adamant about fighting for life, even in difficult situations. "Can I see the form?" I asked. The nurse looked uncomfortable. "That's really something you'd need to discuss with your father." But when I looked at Mom's chart hanging at the foot of her bed, I could see the signature on the visible part of the document. It didn't look like Mom's handwriting. The letters were too sharp, too angular. Mom wrote with flowing, rounded letters. I took a photo with my phone before anyone could stop me. That weekend, Dad said I was getting too involved in Mom's medical care. He suggested I focus on school and let the doctors handle everything. "This isn't something a 20-year-old should have to deal with," he said. "I'm handling the medical decisions." But I couldn't just step back. This was my mother. On Sunday, while Dad was at his office, catching up on paperwork, I went through his home office. I knew it was wrong, but something wasn't right about his behavior. In the printer tray, I found several documents that made my stomach turn. Discharge planning forms for hospice care, estate planning worksheets, life insurance claim applications, all dated for the upcoming week, all filled out as if Mom was expected to die soon. I took pictures of everything with my phone, my hands shaking as I tried to hold the camera steady. These weren't documents someone prepares when they're hopeful for recovery. These were documents someone prepares when they're planning for death, or when they're planning to cause it. I printed copies of everything and hid them in my textbook. If something happened to the originals, I'd still have proof. Monday morning, Dad sat me down for what he called an important conversation. "The doctors have updated Mom's care plan," he said. "I'm now listed as her primary medical proxy. It means I'll be making the important decisions about her treatment." "What about me?" I asked. "I thought I was supposed to be involved." "You're still listed as secondary," he said. But given the complexity of the situation, they thought it was best to have one primary decision maker. I wanted to argue, but something told me to stay quiet. Instead, I nodded and pretended to accept his explanation. But I remembered Mom updating her medical directives last year. She'd specifically named me as her primary proxy because she trusted me to fight for her wishes. She'd even joked that Dad might be too emotional to make tough decisions. How had that suddenly changed? And when? That afternoon, I called Mom's lawyer, Mr. Baldwin. His secretary said he was in court, but she could schedule an appointment for later in the week. "It's about my mother's medical directives," I said. "There might be some confusion about the documents." "Oh dear," the secretary said. "I'll mark it as urgent." Tuesday afternoon, I sat in Mr. Baldwin's office with copies of the DNR form and the medical proxy documents. He studied them carefully through his reading glasses. "This is very concerning, Miss Durney," he said finally. "Your mother updated her medical directives just 2 months ago. You were clearly designated as her primary medical proxy, with very specific instructions about resuscitation and life support." He pulled out a file and showed me the original documents. Mom's real signature was there, flowing and rounded, nothing like the angular writing on the hospital forms. "These documents your father submitted appear to be forgeries," Mr. Baldwin said quietly. "This is a very serious legal matter." "What do I do?" I asked. "First, we need to file an emergency motion to restore your legal authority as medical proxy. Second, we need to alert the hospital that fraudulent documents may have been submitted. And third," he paused, "we may need to involve law enforcement." I felt sick. My own father was trying to steal the authority to make life or death decisions about my mother. "How long will the legal process take?" I asked. "Given the emergency nature, possibly days rather than weeks. But Miss Durney, you need to be very careful. If your suspicions are correct, your father may escalate his efforts." Wednesday morning, my debit card was declined at the coffee shop near the hospital. That was strange because I'd just gotten paid for my part-time job. When I called the bank, they said my account had been frozen due to suspicious activity. The representative couldn't give me details over the phone, but suggested I visit a branch with identification. At the bank, I learned that someone had called claiming to be my father. saying I'd lost my wallet and needed my accounts secured. The call had come from a number registered to Dad's insurance office. "We'll need to file a fraud report to unfreeze your accounts," the manager explained. "This could take several business days." Walking back to the hospital, I noticed my car wasn't in the parking spot where I'd left it. A security guard told me it had been towed for unpaid parking violations, but I'd been paying for daily parking with cash all week. Someone had called the towing company with my license plate number, claiming the fees were overdue. It would cost $300 to get my car back. Money I couldn't access because my accounts were frozen. Dad was making it harder for me to stay at the hospital. Step by step, he was cutting off my resources and pushing me away from Mom. That night, Dad fell asleep on the couch while watching the late news. His laptop was open on the coffee table, still logged into his email. I knew I shouldn't look, but I had to know what he was planning. The email drafts folder made my blood run cold. Messages to insurance companies asking about accelerated death benefit payouts. Correspondence with funeral homes about pre-planning services. A draft to a real estate agent about preparing a property for quick sale. The most damning was an email to Fletcher & Associates, the estate law firm. Timeline: moving faster than expected. Need to finalize transfer documents before any complications arise. Patient condition remains critical. Another email, this one to someone at Dad's insurance office. Policy payout could be substantial if handled correctly. Timing is everything. We'll keep you updated on medical situation. He was coordinating with multiple people, treating Mom's life like a business transaction. The insurance money, the house, everything depended on her not surviving. I forwarded all the emails to my own account and deleted them from his sent folder. If he noticed they were gone, I could claim the laptop had glitched. But now I had evidence. Digital proof of what he was planning. Thursday afternoon, something amazing happened. During a routine check, Mom moved her fingers. The nurse, Amanda, gasped and immediately called for Dr. Williams. When he arrived, Mom's eyelids fluttered, and her hand squeezed mine weakly. "This is very encouraging," Dr. Williams said. "Brain activity is clearly improving." I was crying with relief, but Dad's reaction was strange. He stood in the corner, arms crossed, watching with a cold expression. "Sometimes nerves just misfire," he said flatly. "It might not mean anything." But Amanda, the nurse, looked shocked by his response. "Mr. Durney, this is exactly the kind of improvement we hope to see. Your wife is showing signs of consciousness." "I don't want to get our hopes up," Dad replied. "False hope can be cruel." After Dr. Williams left, I whispered to Mom, "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." Her fingers squeezed mine again, definitely and deliberately. Dad left early that evening, claiming he had important calls to make, but I stayed until visiting hours ended, holding Mom's hand and talking to her about everything and nothing. She was fighting. She was still fighting. By Friday, Dad had become paranoid. He put a lock on his home office door and started password protecting his laptop and phone. When I asked about it, he said he was dealing with sensitive client information at work. But I already had what I needed. Screenshots, printed emails, photos of forged documents, all stored safely in multiple places. I'd also started keeping a detailed journal of everything that had happened. Dates, times, conversations, observations. If this went to court, I wanted a complete record. Dad's behavior was becoming more erratic. He snapped at nurses who suggested Mom was improving. He questioned every medical decision that might extend her care. When Dr. Williams mentioned possible rehabilitation therapy, Dad asked about comfort care alternatives. Saturday afternoon, I made copies of all my evidence and sealed them in an envelope. I drove to my godmother Carol's house and asked her to keep it safe. "If something happens to me," I told her, "give this to Mr. Baldwin, Mom's lawyer." Carol looked worried. "Isla, what's going on?" "I can't explain everything right now, but Mom's in danger, and I might be too." She hugged me tightly. "Whatever you need, sweetie, I'm here." Knowing the evidence was safe gave me strength. Dad could lock his office and change his passwords, but the truth was already secured. Sunday evening, I overheard a conversation that made my blood boil. Dad was talking to Dr. Williams near the nurse's station. I hid around the corner, straining to hear. "I think it's time to consider transitioning to comfort care only," Dad was saying. "My wife wouldn't want to live in a diminished state." Mr. Durney, she's showing consistent improvement. Her brain activity is strengthening daily. But what kind of life would she have? The quality of life considerations. Sir, with proper rehabilitation, many stroke patients regain significant function. It's early yet, but the signs are very promising. Dad's voice grew harder. Doctor, I know my wife better than anyone. She would want dignity, not a prolonged struggle. Dr. Williams sounded uncomfortable. These are complex decisions. Perhaps we should involve your daughter in the discussion. My daughter is young and emotional. I need to make the practical choices here. I wanted to scream. Mom was getting better, and he was still trying to give up on her. No, not give up. End it. When Dad left that night, I approached Dr. Williams directly. My mother never expressed wishes about comfort care, I told him. She always said to fight for life, no matter what. Dr. Williams looked thoughtful. These situations can be very difficult for families. Sometimes people disagree about the best course. This isn't disagreement, I said carefully. This is something else entirely. Monday brought devastating news about the insurance situation. Mr. Baldwin had been investigating Mom's life insurance policy and discovered that a claim had already been initiated. Someone contacted the insurance company last week, he explained over the phone. They indicated that your mother's condition was terminal and began the preliminary claim process. But she's improving, I said. She's been squeezing my hand and following voices with her eyes. I know, that's why this is so concerning. Insurance companies typically don't begin processing claims until after death, unless someone specifically indicates that death is imminent. Mr. Baldwin had also discovered that Dad had taken out an additional life insurance policy on Mom just 3 months ago. A substantial policy that would pay out over $500,000. The timing is suspicious, he said. Combined with the forged medical directives, we're looking at a pattern of premeditated fraud. I felt sick. Dad hadn't just seized on an opportunity when Mom got sick. He'd been planning this for months. What happens now? I asked. I'm filing an emergency motion today. We should have a hearing by Thursday. In the meantime, I'm notifying the hospital's ethics committee about the fraudulent documents. 3 more days. I had to keep Mom safe for 3 more days. Tuesday afternoon, Mom opened her eyes and looked directly at me. Hi, baby, she whispered, her voice hoarse but clear. I started crying immediately. Mom, can you hear me? Do you know where you are? She nodded weakly. Hospital. Stroke. Her speech was slurred, but she was definitely conscious and aware. This was the breakthrough everyone had hoped for. When the nurses came to assess her, Mom was able to follow simple commands. Squeeze your hand, blink twice, move your foot. She passed every test. Dad arrived just as Dr. Williams was explaining that they wanted to move Mom to the progressive care unit the next day. A step down from intensive care, closer to going home. That seems premature, Dad said immediately. She just woke up today. Mr. Durney, this is exactly the progress we want to see. Your wife is stable and improving. But Dad kept arguing. He wanted more comprehensive testing and longer observation periods. Anything to keep her in the ICU where her condition could more easily deteriorate. When I sat alone with Mom later, I held her hand tightly. Mom, I need to tell you something, I whispered. Dad has been trying to hurt you, but I'm going to stop him. She squeezed my hand 3 times, our old signal for, I love you. Wednesday was the day everything changed. Amanda, the nurse who'd been taking care of Mom, quietly asked me to step into the hallway. I probably shouldn't be showing you this, she said nervously, but I think you need to know. She handed me a tablet with security camera footage from Mom's room. The timestamp showed 2:47 a.m. from the night before. In the grainy video, I watched Dad enter Mom's room during the overnight shift change. He approached her IV line and began adjusting something. The angle made it hard to see exactly what he was doing, but his movements were deliberate and practiced. The overnight nurse found evidence that someone had tampered with the IV medication port, Amanda whispered. Nothing harmful was administered, but the security seal was broken. I stared at the screen, watching my father try to access my mother's IV line in the middle of the night. Why are you showing me this? I asked. Amanda looked around nervously. Because something isn't right here. Your mom is getting better, but your dad keeps pushing for more aggressive interventions. And now this. I've been a nurse for 15 years and family members don't typically know how to access IV ports. She was right. Dad had no medical training. So how did he know how to manipulate the IV system? What do I do? Keep this video safe, Amanda said, and maybe talk to someone outside the family. That afternoon, Mom spoke to me in complete sentences. Isla, not him. She whispered when I leaned close. Trust you, not him. Her words sent chills down my spine. Even in her weakened state, Mom sensed that Dad wasn't acting in her best interests. I know, Mom, I'm handling it. Smart girl, she managed. Always, smart girl. When Dad arrived that evening, Mom pretended to be asleep. I noticed she did that now whenever he was in the room. Some instinct was telling her to hide her improvement from him. Dr. Williams came by with good news. We're moving your mother to progressive care tomorrow morning. Her recovery is ahead of schedule. Dad's face darkened. I want a second opinion. This seems too fast. Sir, with respect, your wife is exceeding expectations. Moving to progressive care is standard protocol. I'm not comfortable with it. Dr. Williams looked at Dad strangely. Most families are thrilled when we can step down care levels. It means the patient is healing. But Dad wasn't thrilled. He was angry, and that told me everything I needed to know. Thursday morning was the court hearing. I sat beside Mr. Baldwin in the courtroom, my evidence folder thick with printed emails, photos, and documented lies. Dad sat across the aisle with his own lawyer, looking confident and composed. The judge reviewed our emergency motion to restore my medical proxy authority and investigate potential fraud. Dad's lawyer argued that I was a young adult under stress, who was misinterpreting normal family disagreements about medical care. But when Mr. Baldwin presented the forged DNR form, with handwriting analysis showing clear differences from Mom's real signature, the judge's expression grew serious. Then we showed the emails about insurance payouts and estate planning, all sent while Mom was supposedly dying. Finally, I testified about the security camera footage and Dad's strange behavior at the hospital. Your Honor, I said, my mother is recovering. She's awake, talking, and getting stronger every day. But my father has been trying to convince doctors that she's dying. He's forged legal documents and may have attempted to interfere with her medical care directly. The judge was quiet for a long moment. I'm issuing an emergency order restoring Miss Durney as primary medical proxy, she said finally. I'm also ordering a criminal investigation into potential elder abuse and insurance fraud. Dad's confident expression crumbled. His lawyer whispered something to him, but he just stared ahead in shock. Outside the courthouse, he tried to approach me. Isla, you don't understand. I was trying to protect you from having to make difficult decisions. No, I said firmly. You were trying to kill her. That afternoon, I officially moved Mom to the progressive care unit against Dad's objections. She was sitting up in bed when the transport team arrived, smiling weakly but definitely alert. Better room? She asked, and I nodded. The new unit was brighter, less clinical. There were windows and comfortable chairs for family members. It felt like hope instead of despair. Dad didn't visit that first day in progressive care. He called once, asking to speak to the nurse about concerns regarding premature transfer, but the staff politely referred him to Dr. Williams. Mom's physical therapist, Janet, was amazed by her progress. At this rate, we could be talking about discharge planning within 2 weeks, she told me. Your mother has remarkable determination. She always has, I said, squeezing Mom's hand. That evening, just Mom and me in her new room, she spoke more clearly than she had since the stroke. Thank you, she said. You saved me. I love you, Mom. Love you too. So proud of my girl. She was right, I'd saved her. And in doing so, I'd saved myself from becoming the daughter of a murderer. The next few days brought a cascade of revelations. The police investigation uncovered that Dad had been researching medication interactions that cause cardiac events on his work computer. His internet history showed searches for undetectable substances and stroke patient vulnerability. The insurance company suspended his claim and began their own investigation into potential fraud. They discovered he'd been making inquiries about accelerated death benefits since the day after Mom's stroke. Most damning was the discovery of a second phone in Dad's office desk. This phone contained text messages with someone named Bradley Fletcher, the estate lawyer, discussing optimal timing for estate transition. and minimizing family complications. Bradley Fletcher's law license was suspended pending investigation. On Friday, exactly 2 weeks after discovering that first text message, I watched police officers arrest Dad at his insurance office. His colleagues stood by watching as he was led away in handcuffs. The charges were serious: attempted murder, elder abuse, insurance fraud, and forgery. His bail was set high enough that he couldn't immediately post it. That afternoon, I called all the relatives to update them. Aunt Marion cried when I told her what had really been happening. I knew something felt wrong, she said. But I never imagined. How could he do that to his own wife? I didn't have an answer. I still don't. Mom's recovery accelerated once Dad was out of the picture. Without the stress of his visits and negative energy, she began eating better, sleeping more peacefully, and participating actively in physical therapy. Dr. Williams was amazed by the change. "It's like she's a completely different patient," he said. Sometimes family stress can significantly impact recovery, but this transformation is remarkable. By the following Wednesday, Mom was walking short distances with a walker. Her speech was almost back to normal, with only occasional hesitation when she searched for words. "I want to go home," she told me one afternoon. "Soon," I promised. "Just a few more days to make sure you're strong enough." "Not that home," she said quietly. "New home, away from memories." I understood. She could never feel safe in the house where Dad had planned her death. That week, I started looking at small apartments near my college, somewhere bright and cheerful, where Mom could start over, where we both could start over. Mr. Baldwin helped us begin the legal process of separating Mom's assets from Dad's. The house would need to be sold, but the proceeds would be Mom's alone. Justice was slow, but it was coming. 3 weeks after Dad's arrest, Mom came home with me to the apartment I'd rented near campus. It was small but sunny, with a little balcony where she could sit and watch the street. I'd furnished it simply: a comfortable bed for her, a reclining chair by the window, a small kitchen where I could cook her favorite meals. Mom moved slowly but steadily. She tired easily, but every day brought small improvements. She could dress herself, prepare simple meals, and walk short distances without the walker. "It's perfect," she said on our first night in the new place. "Fresh start." I was taking a semester off school to help with her recovery, but that felt right. She'd spent 20 years taking care of me. Now it was my turn. The legal proceedings against Dad continued. His lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the prosecutor was pushing for maximum charges. Attempted murder of a spouse, especially for financial gain, was taken very seriously. Some nights, I still couldn't believe it had really happened. That my own father had tried to kill my mother for money, that he'd forged documents and manipulated medical staff and planned her death like a business transaction. But then I'd look at Mom, alive and healing in our sunny little apartment, and I'd remember why I'd fought so hard. Some things are worth fighting for. Family is worth fighting for. Truth is worth fighting for. 2 months later, the court case concluded. Dad pleaded guilty to all charges in exchange for a 20-year sentence. He'd be eligible for parole in 12 years, but the judge made it clear that elder abuse and attempted murder weren't taken lightly. At the sentencing hearing, I was allowed to make a victim impact statement. "Your Honor," I said, standing at the podium, "the defendant didn't just try to kill my mother. He tried to steal her voice, her choices, and her future. He forged her signature to deny her the medical care she wanted. He manipulated doctors and nurses who were trying to save her life, and he made me doubt my own perceptions and instincts." I looked at Dad, sitting at the defendant's table in an orange jumpsuit. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "But he failed," I continued. "My mother is alive and getting stronger every day. She's walking, talking, and planning her future. She survived his betrayal, and so did I." The judge thanked me for my statement, and then addressed Dad directly. "Mr. Durney, you violated the most basic trust between family members. You put financial gain above human life. This court finds your actions particularly reprehensible because they targeted someone who was vulnerable and dependent on your care." Dad's shoulders shook as the judge pronounced sentence. 20 years in prison. Restitution for medical expenses and legal fees. Permanent restraining order preventing contact with Mom or me. As they led him away, I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. The father I'd thought I knew had never really existed. But the mother I'd fought to save was real, and she was free. 6 months after the trial, Mom and I had settled into a good rhythm. She'd regained most of her strength and independence. She still tired more easily than before the stroke, and some words occasionally escaped her, but her doctors said her recovery was remarkable. We joined a stroke survivors support group, where Mom met other people who'd faced similar challenges. She became a mentor to newer members, sharing her story and offering encouragement. I went back to school part-time, changing my major to pre-law. What we'd been through had shown me the importance of legal advocacy for vulnerable people. I wanted to help other families who faced betrayal and abuse. One afternoon, we were having coffee on our little balcony when Mom brought up Dad for the first time in months. "Do you miss him?" she asked quietly. I thought about it honestly. I missed the person I thought he was. But that person was never real. "I loved him for 30 years, Mom said. But love isn't enough when someone chooses money over your life." We sat in comfortable silence, watching people walk by on the street below. Normal families, going about their normal lives. I envied them sometimes, but not often. "We're okay," Mom said suddenly. "We're more than okay, we're free." She was right. We'd lost Dad, but we'd gained something more valuable. The knowledge that we could protect each other, that we could fight for what was right, that we could survive anything. A year later, Mom threw me a surprise birthday party in our little apartment, 21 years old. It felt significant, like a real beginning rather than just another birthday. Aunt Marion was there, along with Carol, my godmother, Mr. Baldwin, and even Amanda, the nurse who'd shown me the security footage. Mom had invited everyone who'd helped us during the darkest time. "A year ago I didn't know if I'd see this day," Mom said when we gathered around the cake. "But thanks to Isla's courage and everyone's support, here we are." She'd made a chocolate cake from scratch, her first attempt at complex baking since the stroke. It was slightly lopsided, but delicious. "What do you wish for?" Mom asked as I blew out the candles. I looked around the room at all these people who'd believed in us, who'd helped us fight for the truth, who'd celebrated our survival. "I don't need to wish for anything," I said. "We already got our miracle." Later that evening, after everyone had gone home, Mom and I cleaned up together. She washed dishes while I dried them, just like we'd done when I was little. "You saved my life," she said quietly. "But more than that, you showed me what real love looks like. Not the selfish kind that takes, but the brave kind that protects." "You taught me that," I replied. "You taught me that family means fighting for each other." Outside our window, the city sparkled in the darkness. Somewhere out there, Dad was serving his sentence, learning to live with the consequences of his choices. But here in our small apartment, we were building something new. We'd made it. We'd survived betrayal, violence, and loss. We'd found justice and healing and hope. And we'd done it together. What would you have done if you discovered that text message? Have you ever had to stand up to family members when something didn't feel right? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your experience matters. Your voice matters. And maybe, just maybe, your story will help someone else find the strength to stop protecting people who hurt them. And if this story kept you on the edge of your seat, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell for more stories like this, about ordinary people who found extraordinary strength when they needed it most. Because sometimes the most powerful weapon against betrayal isn't revenge. It's simply refusing to give up on the truth.